I'm going to be ranking classes in the game according to how impressive I personally believe that class is playing in solo. Is it harder for those classes to win? That's S tier. Or is it easier for that class to win? Then it's D tier, right? We go right down to the bottom. The last thing on the list. This is personal bias, okay? This is personal vendetta.
I'm just infinitely faster than you. Doesn't matter what you take off, buddy. Now I just win. Now I just win. Now I just win. Now I just win.
Oh. This is... Barb is probably easier. Barb is less impressive than Curselock, but I'm still doing Curselock last because there's a special place in my heart for this class. I hate this fucking class. Don't you do it to my beloved Warlock. I'm sorry. You can pause the stream. You can pause the stream. I also hate Curselock. It really counters demon. You enter demon form, they can just run for 1,000 years. Let's talk about the Curselock. Okay, before we get into the negative side, let's talk about what does the Curselock have to overcome. Because there's a couple things. To play a good Kitelock or Curselock, I feel like you can't just queue up your Squire gear. There actually is kind of a specific build and some specific stats you need to be effective. It does take a bit of skill in understanding how the build works. This is Blinn trying to catch fast classes. It's true. It's true. This is, guess what? It's just my opinion. Also, it's a fighter melee bias. So of course I take issue with the faster classes that have an easier time escaping and dictating terms in a solos context. Curselock is so frustrating. So it does require a specific build and specific stats to be effective, I believe. And that does take a bit of player skill. You have to learn that about the class. Also, it does require some map and mob awareness. If you want to play a good Curselock, you need to know how to move through the map, if you're going to play a kiting style of play, you have to have a route that you can retreat back through, right? And that does take skill. It does take skill and map awareness to plan those routes and know where you can go and how you have to move as you kite, as you permanently fall back in the map. It takes mob awareness if you want to have a mob blood bag or heal off of mobs. This is also a thing that requires some skill, some knowledge. So I do have respect for that, okay? What I have no respect for is a build that uses as much move speed as possible, plus life steal at range, and then if somehow you're able to close the gap on the Curselock, they have their amazingly fair and balanced, amazingly satisfying skill to play against Phantom Eyes, right? Move speed in and of itself is the biggest advantage you can have in solos, okay? And again, we're talking about a solo environment, and I'm talking from a slower shield fighter perspective. The move speed advantage is enough, full stop. But on top of that, they have hit scan, lifesteal. Hit scan spells that steal life and heal the Warlock. On top of that, if you manage to close the gap and corner them, they have Phantom Eyes and the whole process starts again. Why does Phantom give move speed is the real question. What this does, this combination of stuff, okay, is the biggest indication that SDF is a horrible class designer. Has no idea, like, how other people like to have fun, right? Part of being a good designer is being able to make a thing, is to design a solution that a large number of people will enjoy. And you don't have to enjoy fighting against it, but this whole approach of tremendously effective for a small minority of the population at the expense of the mental health of the rest of the population is short-sighted at best and is sheer idiocy at worst, right? SDF thinks of fun in a singular perspective. It's true. It's the biggest indication that SDF is just an idiot class designer who has no idea how to make a class that is both fun to play and also tolerable to play against, right? And that's kind of like the issue with a lot of these bottom of the tier classes, I feel, is that they're like, They're maybe fun to play for the minority of players that play them, but they're horrendous to play against, which is such a problem, right? Move speed, lifesteal, phantomize means that it's so easy for this class to kite, which means that it's not impressive. This is not an impressive style of play, okay? Also, if that wasn't enough, they still get access to, there's melee options. There's melee options including Book, Blow of Corruption, including Longsword. Like, it doesn't even stop here with the kiting and the move speed advantages. They also have a perplexing degree of melee options and melee damage output, one-shot potential, including a very quick, like the Book Bonk, which is kind of like a recent addition to the game. Like the Book Bonk wasn't always there, wasn't there last summer, for example. Makes it even harder. If you're a shield fighter in pursuit, if you're a melee class in pursuit and you have your weapons away, for them to switch to their book and bonk you takes way less time than switching to some sort of defensive position and preventing that damage, right? In my opinion, that this was the beginning of the end for the game, like for the game's success, for our ability to look at SDF's work and think that he knew what he was doing. Curselock was the beginning of the end. Before the release of Warlock, it was the original 6 classes, and the game was more about resource management, was more about exploration, was a slower and intentional style of play where the things that you did would be used up, and then you'd have to kind of replenish those assets. Warlock was the first time in the game that a class was introduced that was entirely like that didn't need to sit down to recover, right? It was the beginning of the end in that it was the biggest break from the original 6, and also it was the first time that the player base, because I was really keyed in to Dad.
A quick scan of other forums on the internet reveal a bunch of other players that are having a similar experience, I think. A lot of people these days are frustrated with this class.
Ew, what the f*** is that, a Warlock?
You were.
Ew, is that a Warlock?
The player base had a deep and real rejection of many of these design decisions, right? The player base took serious issue with the kind of perma-kiting style, with Phantomize. There was a lot of outcry, right? Where before that, there was a lot of, like, it was hold the line, right? There was a lot of, like, it was one of the first times that, it was the first major switch I noticed where people, you know, they started to break away from Iron Mace and said, hey, this is kind of dumb, right? I feel like SDF doesn't really know what's going on. And I feel like Curselock was the first indication of that. And SDF's refusal to respond to the passionate community feedback and the articulated feedback about how to revise this class, or even just asking questions about this class. It was the indication that he actually doesn't have like a great command over game design, class design, that he got lucky with original 6. He got lucky with an initial class design kind of configuration, but every new addition that he made, Curselock, and then Druid, and then Sorcerer, in many ways have made the game worse, right? Have not made the game better per se. And if that's a kind of a look at like what he's capable of, then that doesn't give me hope for the future, pretty much. Didn't SDF admit that he almost exclusively played trios? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I do not have a great amount of respect for sorcerers, but I respect them more than barbarians and curselocks, to be honest. I'll throw Mosquito down here just to make it cleaner. But this is the list. The next thing I want to do is I want to talk about the people that play these classes, because every time there is a shift in the meta, I feel like there is a portion of the player base that swap over and they play what is strongest, right? There's been moments in time where almost every one of these classes in the bottom rungs here have been crutched on by meta players. I think part of the problem is game design. But part of the problem also are shithead gamers. Are gamers who are just looking for easy wins, right? And will play whatever is strongest no matter what. Sometimes that is Animal Druid. Sometimes that is Barbarian. Currently, it's kind of Mosquito Rogue. It has been Sorcerer. It has been Dagger Fighter, right? There have been instances of all sorts of different kinds of class configurations that have been crutched on by gamers seeking advantages, right? It's like 92% of players. There, finally. The final question here. Only plays meta. Only plays meta. Okay? Currently, they are playing Double Jump Rogue. 4 weeks ago, they were playing a 50 Dexterity Club Barbarian. And before that, they played 3 months of Druid this year, right? Nothing wrong with meta. Fix your game. Player 90%. It's divisive, right? Middle in every game. Toxic community fault. Middle. Non-issue. It's so interesting. I love to see where everyone else is. Because everyone's got a different take, right? And all we can do is share our opinions. There is no right answer here. It's a different internal map for everybody. And I think it's so interesting. Does the individual ever get a free pass to avoid blame here? In my opinion, no. IRL, it's easier to see how individuals always have responsibility. We blame people in society for doing something crappy, even if it's not illegal, right? It's a thing that we're pretty good at. Where am I going with this? Back to the original thing. So back to the statement of don't hate the player, hate the game. Ultimately, I reject this statement. I do not agree with it. One, I believe the game design should strive to anticipate issues of fairness and balance. It's the game designer's job to anticipate issues of fairness and balance, to make a balanced game, okay? But also, players. Players are also responsible for their choices and actions, and can be judged for taking advantage of system weaknesses to gain advantage. In other words, the game can be shitty, and players of the game can be shitty, right? You can take issue with bad game design, and you can also dislike lazy, advantage-seeking players who abuse that bad design. That brings us back full circle. I think the people who crutch on meta, who play these easy classes in solo, are crutching, are lazy, advantage-seeking gamers, right? This is my opinion. There are ways to play this game that nearly guarantee your survival. And not only do I think that is boring, I think the people who crutch on those playstyles in a PvP game are kind of pathetic. There's no empathy for others. There's no belief in one's ability to overcome obstacles. In a game where it's versus the computer, in a PvE-only game, in a single-player game, do whatever. Break the game. Speed run. Look for glitches. I love that. I'll watch that. I love that content. But in a competitive, full loot PvP game where people are wagering their time, effectively, they deserve a fair fight. If you're going to wager your time in a full loot PvP game, they deserve a fair fight, and crutching on metas and abusing game mechanics is powerfully lame, even if this person considers it fun. Okay? Let me follow this up with one bit of media. One thing, just to put a bow on the whole conversation. Are you ready? This is a blast from the past, guys. This is a snippet from the Darkest Hour podcast from July 17th, 2024. It's like 14 months ago. It's a long time ago. Soma, Jay, Spud Hunter, and sodapoppin are talking about the game. Okay? Back when you could see Jay's face. Remember Jay's face? Listen up.
I mean, I'm all for situations where like, fuck, and there's nothing you can do. That should happen, but it shouldn't be based on simply how a class is. And they walked up to you. That shouldn't,
discussion.
That shouldn't be a thing. That sucks. I hate them warlocks. I think I'm like honestly clerics. I think you're a loser if you play warlocks or clerics in solo right now. 100%.
What did he say? He's saying basically, I think that the game should allow for situations where you are put in an unwinnable spot, right? That should happen. You should be confronted with situations that are very hard for you to survive. That's fine. But when class design is so broken that someone can just walk up to you and you're dead, basically no matter what you do, then that sucks. And the people who play those classes are losers. And that's unique. That's distinct because not many people will go that far and actually put the onus on the player. A lot of people will say, don't hate the player, hate the game. And what I love about this clip is that sodapoppin goes that extra step and says that if you're doing that kind of thing, if you're playing this broken game in that way to take advantage, then you're a loser. You are a loser. And I love that.
100%.
And if it's my solution, you have to run to a door and break line of sight and run. That's not good either. That's bad.
Yeah. What does Soma say? And my solution is if you have to break line of sight and run for a door, and that's your only option to like try to survive the encounter, that's also bad. That's bad game design. I agree. Where are all these guys? Who's playing Dark and Darker? A bunch of people who are dad-pilled, right? Who love something about the game. The game, though, I feel like the game had a chance for mainstream appeal. It's an indictment on SDF's decisions and his class design and his approach to game design, where people like sodapoppin, I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything. He has 9 million followers on Twitch. Okay, he's of a stratospheric tier of streamer. I don't know anything about the guy, but I know he played for a good couple of weeks and he quit the game because of Warlocks. Basically, my concern is that we're about to re-enter an era of kind of Warlock dominance. Right when the marketplace opens back up, the Chris dagger is back. Warlocks are strong again for some. I just don't know what it is, but it's interesting that player base oscillations aside, right? And there's different things you could attribute to there are more or less players playing or interested in Dark and Darker. The fact that Dark and Darker has not been able to attract and retain streamers of a certain size or certain caliber is another indication of the game's shortcomings, right? It's just those of us who are kind of bitten by some aspect of the game that kind of are sticking through thick and thin, right? Playing the game no matter what. Other people that treat stream more like a business or like have a lower threshold for pain, right? Have long left the game, right? Like on the bright side, dad is not yet in 1.0, right? Those of us that have been plugged in and kind of suffering along the ebbs and flows over the past like 18 months, it all could just be, a prologue to an actual 1.0 release when these guys finally figure out what the heck is going on and bring the game to some sort of releasable state. My concern is if the water map is their kind of like most recent, like ta-da, like this is what the game is going to be like going forward. The water map is janky as shit, guys. Janky, unoptimized. Unsurprisingly, water combat feels like ass. Like soggy bottom, right? And so part of me wants to be optimistic, but I'm going to be honest. My optimism wanes, right? With each passing season, that they don't have what it takes to compete with other modern titles. SDF wants this to be a 10-year game. No fucking way, dude. Like the water map, the mob AI, the map itself, sure, it's interesting, but the animations, the quality, the experience of the map in totality, not just from an aesthetic perspective, it just can't compete, dude. Have you seen the Hunger playtest? Have you seen other games that have proper teams that are actually doing it? You know what I mean? He meant to say 10-year-old game. Yeah, it does feel like a game from like 2015. Holy moly. Anyway, I want to be optimistic, but I'm also completely ready. My body is ready for the next game that is good and deserves our full attention. And I hope that when that day comes, that you are all also interested, because what I would love is for all of us to recapture the same shared interest in a title, because it unlocks so much from a community perspective. Okay? It unlocks so much. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. I really appreciated your feedback here, because this is a thing I think about all the time. When I am frustrated by certain aspects of the game, I think about these kind of questions, and this was a lot of fun to go through. Good discussion. Thank you, guys. Okay.